Welcome, young Skywalker. I have been expecting you.
I got a really good feeling about this.
Don't get technical with me.
As Obi-Wan would say, Q.
Now I'm lost. What are you going for?
I just thought you were going to say, may the force be with you.
What does Obi-Wan say? He says hello there, but we're leaving, so why would I say that?
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello and welcome to another great episode of the Mostly Star Wars podcast. We're sorry we have missed you guys the past couple of weeks, but we're glad to be back with the wonderful hosts. We have most Darth Canuck, Tyler,
Howdy.
Martinez mostly, and Josiah, and myself, Crazy Quinton. Quinton, I guess it just works like that. We're here talking about the last 3 episodes of Andor because we've missed a couple of podcasts. We're gonna start with episode 5. It's gonna be a little bit of a slower start, as that was a slower episode, but a great episode to build up to what we got later on. So what do you guys think with the series so far? What's your general opinion? You liking it? You feeling good?
Yes. Go ahead, Josiah, if you want to take this one. Did you sorry, Josiah, to interrupt, but did you change your mic on your side because it's not showing up on the Discord or the YouTube? I can hear you I can hear you on Discord, but it's not. Yeah, it's not showing up on the channels. Sorry, folks, a little technical difficulties.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, it looks like it's working.
Okay. So
Yeah,
if you heard me, sorry, you're going to have to listen to me twice. But if you didn't, yeah. I was just saying that, yeah, it definitely is kind of like a slow burn, right? On those couple of episodes, everybody talked about it being kind of like that 3-episode arc. They were spot on. It definitely does feel that way, that it's kind of like 2 build-up episodes and an action episode. That's at least how they've been so far. And, the build-up episodes are excellent. Obviously, we're going to love it no matter what, since we love Star Wars, we are digging every single episode. But thinking of it kind of as a casual, audience, I watched them when I was in Hawaii with my parents, who are definitely casual Star Wars fans. And they definitely were feeling it. You watch it late at night if you're like a casual fan. Those first couple episodes, or like 4 and 5, is definitely kind of a little bit slow. But yeah, definitely the payoffs. That's what I told them. That you're gonna get the payoffs at episode 3. You're gonna get the payoff in episode 6. Everything you've been building on all kind of like accumulates into like an amazing episode, and you definitely need those kind of build up episodes to make everything more impactful, more emotional, more exciting. But yeah, the pacing and the way it's going, it was definitely interesting. But I'd say now where we're at, I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really good for the rest of the season, and hopefully for a season 2, even if they kept the same style. Like now I'm comfortable with it. I understand the way that it's been working, and who knows, they might, completely blow everything out of the water on the next episode and switch it up. But so far, yeah, I've been loving it.
Yeah, you do get that build up. You get to get attached to these characters, and then we get to see what happens to them. Did I interrupt you, Q? You get to see the build up of these characters through episode. Well, we're talking about the episode 4, 5, and 6 arc currently, but more specifically the 5th one, and the axe forgets. I love that title. I love that line of the atrocities that the Empire is doing, that they do these to these individuals. And so the Empire is the evil organization, but they're doing these atrocities to individuals, and the Empire is the axe cutting them down. The axe, they don't remember who they hurt. They hurt everyone. They don't care. But the tree is the individual, and they remember the things, the bad, how they were wronged by the Empire. And it's just an interesting take where you have Skeen, especially once you get to episode 6 and you see the finale with him. But he's the one explaining this. He's saying he never forgets. He's angry with the way they've been treated. And so you don't, it almost makes the moment here, once you get to episode 7, it makes it more impactful.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting when you see their why they're rebelling, why they're doing what they're doing. And yeah.
I'm loving it so far. I think it's really great. One thing I heard recently is that episode 7, which is what we just got this week, is kind of standalone. So there's a 3-episode arc, 7 is standalone, 3-episode arc, and then a 2-episode finale. So you can kind of, we'll talk about it later, but you can kind of see how 7 stands alone. But yeah, it's just so interesting. It's so good. The storytelling, just the design, the worlds look amazing.
That is one thing that is interesting, is the world building. And because they're not necessarily stuck, I was reading somewhere today that said, well, like shows like The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan all use the volume, and they spent their budget on CGI and stuff. And Andor spent its budget on location filming in Ireland and stuff, and for Aldani.
Yeah, definitely a payoff.
Hey, what's
and
up,
I like
Seth?
that it's we're watching Star Wars Andor, but they're not like focusing too much on just Andor, right? We're getting other stories. We're getting Mon Mothma's story. We in this episode we meet her daughter, and that's the first. I'm pretty sure that's the first currently canon appearance of her daughter in current Disney canon. So that was interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know if we've if there's ever been anywhere else that even states she has a daughter. Is there, or is
so
she
in Legends she had a son who was in some stuff, and that son mentioned a sister, but I don't think she was ever actually in it. But in canon, there's been nothing so far. So this is the first introduction of her daughter into canon. And she seems like a regular bratty teenager. Right. Mom's the disciplinarian, and dad's the one that just wants to have fun.
I really like that episode there, because it shows that maybe, because you think, when you think of Mon Mothma, you think of the elegant leader of the rebellion, and here her daughter is complaining, basically saying her doing this stuff for the rebellion is maybe she's taking her own family for granted. Obviously, her husband doesn't care much for her, but also he's kind of a dirtbag anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, he just wants to enjoy the luxury and high life of being a senator's husband and have fun parties.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have a job. Just hangs out at home.
I mean, why do you need a job? You're the senator's husband.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Seth says here, don't get me wrong, I love Vader and Jedi and whatnot as much as the next guy, but the universe is so much more than just that, and I love that Andor taps into that. Yeah, so the you're getting more of what it's like to be a normal person in this world. And
Mhm.
and I really like what they're showing with that when it comes to regards to the empire itself. You're also seeing
Yeah.
what it's like to live a normal life as part of the empire with Deidre and Cyril, and
Mm-hmm.
his story. It just gets so it's so amazing, and I can't wait to see it unfold because even Deidre, she doesn't know that the empire's wrong or what they're really doing. I don't think, but she's full hearted with the empire, and
Mm-hmm.
and she's trying to suss out the rebellion. And the problem with the officers in the empire is that they're all trying to elevate themselves,
Right.
and she's understanding that, man, that's the issue, that they aren't looking at certain things just because they don't care. even
Mm-hmm.
Cassian says it to Nemec, and he's like, they don't care about you. They
Yeah.
don't care that you think what you think, and they don't care how you feel. They're
Mm-hmm.
just going to keep doing what they're doing. And
Mhm.
but Deidre sees that from a different. She sees the same thing, but it's from a different perspective. She's seeing that the rebels are infiltrating these these small things that look like one-offs. She knows that are becoming more of a problem and look
Mm-hmm.
like a growing rebellion.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think Seth's second point there, he said, yeah, I love that it kind of grounds Mon Mothma and almost humanizes her, makes her more of an actual character. And I totally agree with that too. I love that they did that with her. And I mean, she's just been killing it. Anytime that she's on the screen, I'm just super excited what's going to happen next. You know, how she's going
Oh
to,
yeah.
act out this next part, because she's just been so amazing. And I think that what they did in this series with her is, completely surpassed any of my expectations. It's just getting better and better with her story. And I think, even like you were saying with Cyril, all of kind of these like side stories, they feel good, they feel right. And at first it's like, hey, how far are we going to go with this? Are they, we're eventually, we know, going to get a payoff with a lot of these stories kind of interconnecting. But I love that it's kind of doing like a nature versus nurture, right? In this series, like there's a lot that, these characters didn't have a choice, whether it was, where they were born, what they were forced to do, forced into, they kind of are living their part. But at the same time, deep down, these different characters have passions and desires, and something that's going to certainly, supersede wherever their station is. Like Cyril, he can't be that person. We're gonna get there later, but he can't be the person that he's like forced in to be, right? Mon Mothma's the same. She, when she realized that she can't, or where she's at is good, and she's doing the best that she can, but she needs to do more than that. And so she has to break free from basically what everyone views her as. And Cassian's the same way. He's been forced into different situations, but he is he is who he is, and he's going to be who he is, right? And so I love, like, putting these characters in all these diverse situations and seeing them be themselves despite everything. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like she's done a really good job in portraying Mon Mothma, this character with all this responsibility on her shoulder. And you see that that part where her daughter mentions that she's like neglecting her family, and you can see that she's like hurt by that sentence, but she also
Yeah.
knows that she has to, what she's doing is something she has to do, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
she might be sacrificing some things for, but she's trying to protect hundreds of millions of billions of people in the galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
and you can just see that on her face when that scene rolled out, and that was, I'm loving Mon Mothma's story in this.
Oh yeah.
It's just great.
Yeah, and I just want to take a quick moment here. First, yeah, I never even mentioned it, but Kaloni, thank you so much for being with us and watching and listening to us and letting us know that you couldn't hear me at the beginning. That was amazing. And yeah, Seth, we've already kind of read some of your messages, but thank you for being with us. And then a big shout out also to the Renaissance Men. Thank you so much for stopping by. If that's Stu, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. He said, "Hello, guys. Love the podcast. I'm going to wait until Andor has finished its run and binge it in one go. That would be amazing. You definitely could binge this whole thing."
Oh yeah, for sure. Every episode ends and you want more. Even after the action episode, you're like, okay, I want to know what happens next.
Yeah.
And but I'm also like, I couldn't wait, man. I gotta watch every episode as soon as I get an opportunity to. Like if I'm not working, I wake up Wednesday morning. Oh, time to watch Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is kind
Right.
of that nice excitement, like I've talked about. When you have once a week, you wake up on Wednesday. Even I have to work in the morning. I don't get to watch it till I get home, but there's that excitement of like new Star Wars today, and you just don't get that when you binge it all.
Yeah, and I think that is something really interesting. And I don't know, Quinton and Tyler, if you've watched the Renaissance Men, but they're really cool. They talk about pop culture, movie shows, all that type of stuff on their podcast. And I know they've talked about this before too, but it is really interesting, like from a business perspective of, the streaming services dropping a whole series at once or doing it weekly. Or some even do like, 3 episodes at a time or 2 episodes at a time, whatever it might be. It definitely is interesting. I know Netflix dropping like whole series. A lot of people have seen that the numbers kind of drop off, after a big Stranger Things kind of thing drops, or, whatever it might be. Like everybody jumps in, watches that. And then they're like, I think, even Send It O'Reilly, if I remember right, they basically will get Netflix for a little bit of time to watch, some of the shows they like and then cancel it type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I personally, I love the every week situation, like you're saying, and I hope Disney, because they do drop some series like all together, but as far as Star Wars goes, I really hope that they continue with this weekly thing because, I love having some excitement to look forward to like every single week. I mean, if they do like 1 or 2 or 3 episodes at the beginning, like I'm going to love that too. But I really hope moving forward, they just continue to have these series like weekly. Cause then you have like, one series is like 2 months worth of Star Wars every single week. And that just feels so much better than, all 3 of us, we would watch the whole series in like a day. So then it's like we had Star Wars one day. Yeah.
I've even done that where I will watch it as they release, but I've even done it where I've like watched the entire season the day the last one comes out. I'll watch the entire season before watching the last one.
Oh yeah, I do that like Mandalorian for sure.
Yeah,
I was doing that. Yeah.
So Kalani says, give you something to look forward and helps you get through the workday.
Yeah. 100%. Even like if like, that, oh, you're like still like you just watched the new one, you're like 6 days out, 5 days out, it's still like exciting because you're just like, oh man, like what's gonna happen next. You have that time too to like when you're binging, you have like four seconds between the next episode is gonna play, right, to like kind of think like, okay, what's gonna happen next, what do I think is gonna happen next, right? Whereas when you have a whole week, it's just awesome because you have that whole week to kind of like meditate and like really think about like what happened and what that could mean, the implications for the wider spectrum of the story. And you kind of start thinking like, oh, what if they did this, what if they do that, which is really cool when you're right, it's amazing. And then when you're completely wrong, it's even better because then it just like blows your mind. You're just like, oh man, I never even thought of that, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, you also with the weekly versus binging and really all release at one time. The thing is that when it all releases at one time, you know, like with when Stranger Things did,
Yeah.
I couldn't. I mean, Stranger Things was 9 hours for the first 7 episodes that they released, and so I couldn't get that in one day. It took me a few nights, almost a week or so, to get through that. But when
Yeah.
they do that, you open your YouTube page and it's full of spoilers because
That's true.
everyone
That is true.
and so because everyone needs to create content based on each episode, and I'm almost willing to bet you that as a creator those content doesn't do as well when everyone's just watching the full series,
Mhm.
and so instead of an episode by episode. That's also why I like the release schedule now that they've switched to Wednesdays,
Mhm.
because it used to be Fridays, and for all those content creators, that would mean working the weekend and before in order to get your videos out. Or like if it released on Friday nights, we'd be sitting here, we'd just be watching today, and so we'd have to, you know, maybe have to do a different day of when we do our podcasts or anything. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
like the during the week release. It also
Mhm.
is like, especially because Wednesday is the middle of the week, and you're like kind of it starts to drag on by Wednesday, but then you're like, oh, new Star Wars, and it kind of gets you through the rest of the week.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Seth said the discussion during the wait between episodes is the best. I hate losing that. Yeah, definitely. I think that, you know, obviously behind the scenes when we all watch it and then we're talking about it, you know, every single day pretty much until, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we record. So yeah, that's definitely awesome too. You get that time to be excited about what you just seen instead of already onto the next episode. And um I do think that it helps with this show too because of the pacing it's been so far. You know, for instance, like, you know, we're talking still about episode 5, right? The Axe Forgets.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that the episode is so good. You know, if you take it for what it is and piece by piece of like what's building the character interactions, you know, how we see our main character Cassian, right? How we see in this case Clem, right? As Clem, how he's kind of navigating through this situation that he's in. And you can kind of like see like how he's been so successful for so long, right? Of the being the way that he is. He's pretty easily like slides into this situation that a lot of people, you know, maybe wouldn't even survive, right? Being thrown into something like that. So I really like the build up with this one. And if there was immediately episode 6, I feel like episode 5 could kind of get lost a little bit in the shuffle as far as like discussing all of the really cool, you know, different character interactions. And you know,
Mhm.
you're really seeing, you know, that it's like life or death, right? You're really noticing like, oh man, like one mistake and you're dead. And then the suspicions start building in that there could be a mole, right? There's possibly a mole. And so they're like, oh man, you know, is there a mole amongst us? Is there a mole? You know, then the Empire's thinking, is there a mole inside of them? So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's awesome.
Let's talk about one of the coolest scenes so far in the show. If just they're practicing in the valley and they hear what sounds like a TIE fighter around, right?
Oh.
So they cover up they try to hide everything, cover up the weapons, cover up the blasters, and then when that TIE fighter comes screeching through the canyon, you know, right above the ground, you know that
Hmm.
that's the Empire not just checking in on them, that's them using terror tactics, right? Like
Yeah.
that would be scary.
Hmm.
And to the Empire, that obviously they just think these guys are just the very few farmers and nomads left in the hills, right?
Yeah.
And they're still trying to terrorize them.
Hmm.
And you see them like they're covering their ears. It's screeching loud right
Yeah.
up the river, and you see like the water get blown off the river. That was
Hmm.
such a cool scene.
I like the what this show is doing with something like that, because you feel like when you watch a New Hope or Return of the Jedi or anything, a TIE fighter is like a dime a dozen. They're just, the just a fighter, and you've seen the Millennium Falcon shoot down a bunch of them, and so you don't even think they're any like very significant. But then this show is like showing how terrifying the Empire is, even with these vehicles that are you'd almost consider insignificant in their power, but it just they hold the Empire's fear and their dominance, and they are portraying that with a TIE fighter. They're doing that same thing with a stormtrooper, because they've only rarely shown a stormtrooper, and I think that might and that's not even until episode 7, but even the stormtrooper is terrifying. When they walk by it, they're like, you don't make eye contact, you don't mess with them.
Yeah.
And so they're just a new way to look at those things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think another thing, like we're gonna talk about it later, during the Eye episode, but yeah, talking about Seth was saying about humanizing, right? I think that's like one of the coolest moments in that episode that we'll kind of talk about later. But jumping back to this one, I definitely agree. Like, kind of seeing these, even like an individual TIE fighter, it starts to more like, prove like there's one person in there, and it's not just like you're saying, just like a machine. It kind of reminds me of like, back in the day during like these big huge battles, they'll send out like different chunks of the battalion, right? Or they'll say like, all right, send out like this chunk of cavalry, right? And the horses go, and you kind of just, you think of it as like that, like the horses are going whatever. But then when you kind of break it down and you see like one individual soldier, one individual horse, like for some reason it just it like, yeah, like what he was saying, it humanizes it. It makes it like an actual individual versus just like this group of TIE fighters. Like when you see one and it's going down, like you were saying, specifically that it's flying that low to intimidate these poor farmers. Like it's just it makes it more real.
He doesn't need to get that low to take a closer look. The technology they have, they could see just fine what's going on down there, but the sound, the screeching of a TIE fighter is, as Seth mentioned, it's iconic, it's loud and oppressive and piercing. It is a very piercing sound. It's like a screeching sound, and I love that they're utilizing that. Like it's an iconic sound. Like when you hear it, you know that's a TIE fighter. You're not like, I wonder what ship's coming. Nope. It's a TIE fighter.
If you have a nice stereo system on your TV, it shook the whole house. In mine, it like shook the whole house when it went by, and it's because the reason it's also so terrifying is because it's in this episode where it's most of the episode is just talking, and so it's like this buildup of fear, and so but most of the episode is relatively quiet, and then you just get this dominant, piercing sound from the TIE fighter, and it just gives you chills.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to talk about Nemec. We all like Nemec, right? So Nemec he's got some interesting thoughts. So when they're sitting down there talking, and he gives them the milk that Cassian doesn't want to drink, he says that we've grown reliant on Imperial tech, and it almost is like, basically like us. We've grown reliant today on the technology that we use. And then he says there's a growing list of things we've known and forgotten, the things they've pushed us to forget. And what he's doing is he's showing him the navigation tool that he's using. which is actually just an old, really old Polaroid camera. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But, and he's saying things like freedom. And then, so it's really interesting. I'm trying to find in my notes here. Okay, so he's saying about the Empire that so much going wrong, so much to say, all of it happening so quickly. The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says it's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident. And that is kind of just chilling to think about, because it's easier for them to just, the Empire to just roll over everyone and do bad things to everyone that no one can even understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, if it was only like one thing here or there, they would be like, why is this happening? What's going on? But
Right.
there's just too much going on for them to even comprehend it. And that's what Nemec is getting at. Like, they can hide behind all of these atrocities when it would be much harder to hide just behind one. And it's just an interesting idea, and it's almost kind of like what goes on in the world today. You can see there's just so much stuff. But so that's just another way Star Wars is relating to our everyday life, and it's just an interesting take to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll read Cream Pie Lars. Thank you for being with us today. He said, would Andor have been better if Cassian started out as a sleepy janitor? I think it would have been great for Mexican representation in Star Wars. I took that one personally because I'm Mexican, so rather me read that than you guys. But yeah, you know what? Cassian could have been a great character like Finn. He was in environmental sanitation, environmental services. Definitely great to see his character again, because I think a lot of us, when we first saw Rogue One, loved his character, and it was such a great movie. We wanted to see more of it. Even he wanted to play more of it, but like not very many people thought that there'd be a go back in time. So yeah, this is amazing to get to see the beginning of his story, because he's such an amazing actor, and I can't imagine him now not being in Star Wars.
Yeah, the show is creating such good characters, side characters, people, and just everyday things or everyday people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just an interesting take where it's an interesting take, that because you see it from standard people's point of view, but it's not just like the people from Aldani, which you're seeing, but it's also the people on Coruscant, and how life has become dull for everyone. I mean, we start to see that once we get to episode 7 with Cyril, and he basically has to live in a Ready Player One pod.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, cream pie Lars. He said, "LOL, I don't even think Diego Luna is Mexican." Yes, he is.
He was born December 29th, 1979 in Mexico City, Mexico.
Yeah, he's huge in telenovelas. So yeah, if you watch novelas, you know Diego Luna very well. He's been in multiple novelas and lots of Mexican film as well before he ever got famous here in the United States.
So, do you guys is there more you want to say on this episode, or should we move on to episode 6?
If we're closing, I absolutely love the way this episode ended. The last line there between Luthen and his assistant, when she tells him, "It'll all be over this time tomorrow," and then he replies with, or it'll just be starting.
Yeah.
Like we know it's just starting, but that line is like, oh man, and that's
So
how they end it
good.
too. It's like
And-
when as soon as that, and then credits start rolling, and you're like, I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so
was
excited.
definitely the buildup that we
Mm.
needed going into the next episode. It was
Yeah.
just like perfect. Like there's some moments when you just know, like it was a perfect crescendo finale, right? And that was just like you
Mhm.
knew that was gonna happen, and it was gonna be like fade to black.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you heard that line and it kind of fades out, and you're just like, no, I want more.
Yeah.
No,
Or it'll
keep
just be
going.
starting. He's talking about the rebellion as a grander scheme, but you know, as in if it goes wrong, it could be the end. It could be a huge drawback, a downside. It could harm the rebellion significantly if it goes wrong. But if it goes right, it'll just be starting.
Yeah, that was great. All right, let's move over to episode 6 here. The Eye.
What a great title. All the titles have been good.
Yeah.
Which is funny because when they first released them, they didn't even have titles. When they first released the first 3, they weren't even titled.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they might have been. They might have just somebody skipped that step and didn't put it in the rendering. You know how that works, Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But oh my goodness, the design of this show, the CGI of the eye itself, incredible. I didn't get a very good picture of it, but you can see with our thumbnail what it kind of looked like, and just which I really liked it because this show has been really dark, and that's where we're at in this time of the Empire. Everything the darkness is closing in. They're being suppressed by the Empire, and everything's becoming dark and grim. But when they pull this off, in the eye, it's this bright light. Everything's colorful and very vibrant, and it's just like in Rebels, or what Poe says, the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down. But it's just, you get that contrast of going from a dark, because the episode starts in very morning and it's foggy, and most of the episode is and then it progresses to twilight, and so you get very low visibility and everything's getting dark. But then you have the eye and everything's bright, and this is the beginning of the rebellion. And I just love, Star Wars has always done really good with color contrasts, with good versus evil, and that was just another one that hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I love the way this episode starts off with Nemec talking to Andor, and he's talking about being nervous and not being able to sleep, and Andor's like trying to boost him, right? The adrenaline will kick in. You'll be all right when it starts to happen, and then they kind of start disagreeing with each other, and Andor says he's half right. The Empire doesn't care enough to learn, doesn't care about you, and then Nemec's like, "What are we supposed to submit and be thankful?" And then Andor leans in real quiet and goes, "Do I look thankful to you?" And I love that line.
Yeah, that was really good.
It's like he's disagreeing with some of Nemec's ideals, but he's still here to fight the Empire. He does not agree with the Empire. He's not thankful for them, but he doesn't agree in the. He's not there for the reasons that Nemec is.
Yeah. And I think that your statement right there kind of goes along with Cream Pie once again said that he likes this Star Wars because it's smart. He said, you know, referring to the Andor series, he's saying that it's smart Star Wars, you know, and I totally agree with that because, you know, a lot of Star Wars is like George Lucas has said, you know, 100 times for 12-year-olds, right? 12-year-old kids. So it's very simple, right? Easy to understand. The morals are clearly there a lot of times. The what you know the you know the stories of positivity at the end of all of their battles are definitely there. And I feel like this one, like from the very first episode, is a very different type of Star Wars, you know, in its kind of seediness and its darkness, which we kind of already knew going into it. And, you know, then what I didn't expect though is there's lots of philosophy, there's lots of different people's ideals. You know, Nemec is an amazing character because he is whether he was very well educated or not, he's very like well thought out in his, not only like his own thoughts but like his feelings too. Like we can see it in the way he speaks, and later obviously we're going to see it in his journal, right? He wrote down lots of different things that
It's manifesto.
his manifesto, lots of different things, and kind of his theories and thoughts on life, right? And then we also get the flip side though, which is very rare in Star Wars, but we're getting to see all of these, you know, like ISB officers, like imperial officers. We're getting to kind of see their kind of side of it, their philosophy, their thought process. You know, we're getting to see like a corporate side, because I feel like you don't get like the corporate side a lot of times, you know. And so I think that that's really interesting too when you look at these, you know, the empire, you know, kind of like as a business, as a corporation, and like all of these, there's all these different layers, right? And there's people that are in it just for that. They have nothing to do with anyone else. They don't care about anyone else except themselves and growing, you know, secularly, right, in their career. So you get to kind of see that. And so yeah, I do really like this because it makes you think. If you start thinking about their side of things, you know, like these different ISB officers, you're like, yeah, I could see totally why they feel that way and why they think that way and why these are their motivations. Even with Cyril, you can understand why he's doing what he's doing. And you know, it's not just like, oh, here's the good side, here's the bad side, this is the light and the Jedi, this is like the Sith and the darkness. It's really blurring the lines and making the audience like think about it, like, wow, that is really interesting.
Well, and you talk about how they're like I said, the ISB is out to be, you know, I just want to be the most powerful. I want to climb the ladder, and you see that in the corpos too, right? It's not just
Yeah.
the Imperials; it's everybody. Cyril's mom wants him to do that. He
Yeah.
wants him to climb the ladder, and that's the thing about Cyril is he did what he thought was right. He was trying to uphold the law and find a murderer. I think he's gonna come along, and he might have his current hatred for Andor, but I think he's gonna join the rebellion. I think he's gonna be a good guy because he wants to uphold the law. He wants to protect people. He wants to help people. So I think it's all around him is just, you know, me first, put everybody else in the dirt, and that's not at all how Cyril feels.
Yeah, he's such an interesting character, and I know we've all been having like our theories about him and what's going to happen, but literally almost like week to week, I'm flipping what I think's going to happen because like I'm just
Right.
like, I don't know, like they're doing so good, like kind of putting him in a place that makes you wonder like where he's going to be, because he's obviously going to be this isn't the last we're going to see of him. We know he's going to do something else, you know, that last scene where he's just sitting there and it zooms out, he's in one cubicle of all these hundreds of cubicles, you know, and we know that's not him. You know, he can't do that. He can't sit there and, you know, he's, you know, custom fitting, you know, his uniform and putting piping on it, you know, like he's not a sit at the computer type of guy. And so the only thing that I'm at kind of right now, you know, without him just like quitting and leaving, is whatever he's doing, you know, like if he stumbles upon something, right, just because of the place that he's at, wherever he's working, what he's working on, he ends up stumbling across something, you know, because of his position or his little job that he's doing now. that gives him the choice. And I would love to see that at some point, is him have a choice, of what to kind of do, because I think that would be really cool for his character, because I have no idea what he would choose. I really don't.
And
I think
that you almost know that that's going to come, because
Mhm.
obviously, why would they keep showing him in for a random few minutes every episode? And what
Mhm.
we're keeping informed
yeah,
of what's going
he's
on
got
with him.
with his life. Yeah.
So there's got to be something that's going to happen with him. He's going to come back
I
into play with Cassian somehow.
Mhm.
yeah, and I don't want to say that I know, because obviously I don't, but I kind of hope we get that, he becomes a good guy, and he fights alongside, because obviously, I mean, the first couple episodes I didn't really like. I wasn't like, yay, go to Cyril, you know what I mean? I was kind of like, oh, he's the bad guy. He's after Cassian,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of hoping we get like an Agent Callus kind of situation, where at the end of this series, he's one of my favorite characters of the show. I mean, so far
Yeah.
it's been, every time I see him, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen to him,
Mhm.
right? Like, what's he going to do? Because it's got to be going somewhere. They're not just they're not just going to film it like this, and then at the end of the show, oh, he's still in his cubicle. At the end of the series, like, there's something that's going to happen. He's going to be a part in it, and I hope he, in his work in that cubicle, he sees atrocities done by the Empire, and realize that upholding the laws of the Empire isn't helping people, but in fact hurting them.
I hope
And
with
that's not what he wants. He's not just follow the blind law, because if he was follow the blind law, he would have did what his boss told him to do, and just ignore the murders.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So obviously he's a thinker, not just a do what I'm told kind of guy. So I'm hoping that he learns something, and it changes his view of things.
Mhm.
I hope with his new job he can actually move out of his mom's house, because she is awful
Oh.
to him.
She is the worst, but it's
And
so
you know
good.
what? You know what? It's a really interesting story with his mom, because it's like 100% true. There's
Mhm.
so many moms that are just like that, and it's not that they are horrible people. I think deep down she really does want the best for him. Now, is it going to affect her status in the neighborhood and to all of her friends? Of course, right? She's going to be able to say, "Oh, my son, look, like he's, so successful," and all this type of stuff, right? It's going to make her feel good in the family and in the neighborhood, all that, to the neighbors across the way, right? But I feel like deep down she really does want him to be successful. I feel like she's like, just like a lot of moms, she struggles with perfectionism, and even though she's not perfect, wants to see that out of her kids. So I think it's hilarious every time that I see their interactions, because it's like I've seen that with other moms, other like friends of mine and their moms. Like, I've seen these conversations like almost exactly, and it is so hilarious. Like, just because like he's lived his whole life like this, right? This isn't shocking. The way she's talking and what she's saying, it doesn't shock him at all. Like, this is just who she is.
When we
And he
talk about normal
sits
people,
there and takes it.
Yeah.
while he eats his blue and brown
Cereal.
cereal and his blue milk.
Yeah.
Just like,
Oh, man.
I like the one part where he's just like looking at it and like trying to ignore her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's just funny. It's like, yep, I've heard it all before, Mom. Thank you.
Yeah.
But the poor guy.
Mm.
But yes, he is one of the very interesting characters, and I would actually be It'd be interesting if they make him in such a way where, instead of joining the rebellion and seeing what's right, he continues as part of the Empire, but just as he is, thinking that he's doing right. Because, like we talked about, he didn't do anything wrong in those first 3 episodes. He was hunting a murderer, as far as he knew.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't acting. He acted maybe a little rash and didn't really think about everything that could happen. But it's still interesting the way his character will continue to go.
Mm-hmm. Because that wasn't even propaganda, which we know, the Empire is very good at propaganda, and it kind of goes with Cream Pie, his newest comment. That he was kind of talking about humanizing enemies, right? Because it really starts making you think of like both sides of it. He was saying, possibly, the Empire's viewing Skywalker like a terrorist, or like Osama bin Laden. He even brought out, right? And so it is true. Like, once you throw propaganda into it on top of that, yeah, there's definitely people in the Empire, ISB, even like the Corpos, that are probably viewing like the Jedi and anything having to do with anything against the Empire, right, as the enemy, as terrorists. So I think that the interesting thing, though, with this story with Cyril is from the very beginning, like, he wasn't even tricked. This wasn't propaganda. This literally was murder. This like straight up was like murder. And so like he wasn't tricked. It wasn't like, he was, just blindly, like someone had mentioned earlier, blindly following, orders, and he doesn't know the whole story. Like, so this person straight up killed 2 officers, whether or not the officers were, shaking him down, robbing him or not. Either way, like, he straight up murdered 2. And like, even if you know the whole story, okay, one of them was an accident. The second one was not.
That's true.
Yeah.
I kind of like how casually, how the Empire and some of the leaders, how they casually talk about the oppression that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, let's see.
The commandant.
The commandant. He says their deeper problem is pride. The Aldanis would rather lose. They'd rather suffer than accept, which is wildly ironic, as they've choked down everything we've thrown at them the last 12 years. It's a 10-day trek from the lowlands. We'd offer them a transport because we know they'll refuse. But then along the way, we've planted a series of comfort units and shelters with cheap local beverages. So the commandant here, he knows that he's oppressing these people.
Yeah.
And it's just, he doesn't care. So you can see some of these people, like Cyril, might not know the difference, but then there's others that just plainly see what's going on, what they're doing to these people, and they just don't care because, well, they're fat and happy drinking their coffee or their calf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love how, like, on this one, like, he literally has gotten too fat in his assignment. Like, he can't put his belt on. It's like, oh man, like, I was just bust up laughing, and I was just looking at my wife because I was like, that's like COVID. His assignment on all Donnie's like my COVID. It's like all my clothes like don't
your
fit.
belt no longer fits.
Yeah,
that's great. And so another thing about this episode that I liked, maybe not liked, but didn't expect. I didn't expect them all to die. Like, they all die.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, this is a podcast talking about the episode. I don't. If you're still listening to us already, as we're 40, 50 minutes in, then I think you've seen the episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all die, and I didn't. We expected Nemec was going to die, obviously, right? Because he was the hopeful one, the one that was for the cause. And so we expected him to die. But Terramun dies. Lieutenant Gorm dies.
Yeah.
And that's before they even take off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't expect... So, again, like I said, we expected Nemec to die. But the way he died was so unexpected.
It was so much worse than just seeing him get shot.
Yeah.
And
like, he made it out of the base
just
to be crushed on take.
And
Well,
you could tell he's
and
paralyzed.
he survived enough to like help everyone else survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they give him the med stim,
Mhm.
and his last words that he's giving instruction to Cassian on how to navigate the eye, and he
Mhm.
says, climb now. And you just know that's the callback to K2SO's last
Mhm.
words in Rogue One. And it's just, when I heard that, I should have known he wasn't going to survive. He
Mhm.
wasn't going to survive as soon as they heard that. That was the foreshadowing. But
Yeah.
that moment was just like, this episode, the first thing I wrote down was like, this show has me all twisted up. There's all the characters dying, everyone dying, and the way Nemec dies, he navigates them. He navigates them. too much emotions, Kaloni says,
Mhm.
out through this beautiful eye, this vibrant, this spark that, like Seth says, is gonna heat the grill, that'll cook the burger, that'll feed the resistance.
Well, thanks for offering to cook us lunch, Seth. Appreciate it.
I know. Now I want a burger for real.
Lit by the eye.
Mhm.
How cool was that when the first asteroid or whatever it is went flying through the sky, and that sound it made? It was
So cool.
screeching across the sky. That was awesome. I mean, like,
The sound design
as
is
it's
on point.
yeah, and I loved how it was like, it wasn't just the eye, because the eye is amazing when you really see it full, but it's like starting. It's a slow start, right? The eye is a slow burn, and then as it going, that's the sign of time to start the mission, because they know how long it'll be till that eye comes, and when they need to be out of there.
Mhm. Yeah, I love the part like at the beginning when they're about to start the heist, right? And Vel is standing above the entrance, like to the vault or whatever, to the building, and they're asking like, "Are we doing it or not?" And I love like her hesitance because there's so much on her shoulders. There's so much on her saying yes, let's do it, or no, abort, right? And like then now knowing the rest of the episode, that moment is just so much more impactful because like she had all of these people's lives in her hand at her word, right, to go. And I really am looking forward to seeing where this goes next because it was her final word to say let's go, and that's why everybody is dead, right? If you want to look at it that way.
I like the contrast though there, because in that moment she kind of hesitates, and it's Cinta that's, and it kind of goes back to what Skeen had said about Cinta. She's probably the toughest one of us, and
Yeah.
we thought Vel's the leader and she's the tough one and she's doing this and then she's kind of like nervous, and Cinta has, nope, let's go, let's do this, come on, it's time to start.
Mhm.
I love that when Skeen is talking to Andor and tells him that Terraman used to be a stormtrooper. And you can
Yeah.
really see that especially going forward in the episode, you can see that. But when he's telling Andor that, he says, "You should have been here when Cinta found out. They killed her
Yeah.
whole family."
Mhm.
So stormtroopers killed her whole family. So that's that's what she's got going for. That's why she's fighting.
Mhm.
But then
That's
somehow
her
she's getting
rebellion.
along with this ex stormtrooper. And
Yeah, that was really
if you think
interesting.
about it, like in the past two episodes, the way he's been like barking out orders and trying to train them, you got to do this to look like a soldier, and you go, oh, this is how he knows all this. He was a stormtrooper. He was a soldier.
Yeah, and that's what? I thought that exact same thing. And I was also thinking he's very like rough and he's very serious, right? And like you think like, okay, and then they reference stormtroopers killed the whole planet. You know, he most likely was part of mass genocides, you know, on different locations or on planets or whatever. Like he saw firsthand how bad, you know, the Empire was, you know, and so like he's not
Mm-hmm.
playing around here. You know, he
Mhm.
knows what they're dealing with probably better than anyone else there.
Yeah, so we've got this growing list of uh, stormtrooper deserters,
Yeah.
or soldier deserters. You got Terriman, you got Solo, you got Finn,
Mm-hmm.
He
and
wasn't a storm. Han really wasn't a
he was part of the
stormtrooper.
Imperial Army.
Yeah.
He was a soldier. That's why I said stormtroopers and soldiers.
Yeah. And then he did wear stormtrooper armor. So
I mean,
as
Wedge
a
was a TIE
disguise.
pilot,
Yeah,
yeah.
which
yeah. Some of
Another
the best
thing-
characters are defectors.
interesting, funny thing I saw going around the Twitterverse. People are literally tweeting out in this episode. Is this the first time Star Wars canon confirms peeing?
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
Oh,
is
man,
that
they
really
actually go
what people
pee.
are talking about in the episode?
I know, that was so hilarious. I saw so
That's-
many people talking about it. It's like, this is the first time we've seen someone pee. It's like, wow.
That's the worst thing. Is that the worst thing complain about?
Yeah.
That's all right.
It was just the discussion around that kind of made me laugh.
Mm-hmm. But I
But-
think the next big thing on this episode is when they actually, you know, get in and they like basically kidnap everybody or hold the commandant's families hostage. And that was an epic scene. I don't know if you guys were. I wasn't expecting that. I kind of felt like I didn't know that like they were going to be involved really. You know, like
Right.
especially the family. Even though they showed it, which now looking back, I was like, well, I guess it kind of, you know, now it kind of makes sense why they showed them earlier, so we know who they were. But I was like, that blew me away when I was like, oh my goodness, they got like the whole family hostage. Like, dang.
Well, and then you get the I can't remember what his name was, but the other Imperial there who's trying to like when they're taking him hostage, he's trying to stand up to him and telling him to let the boy go. Like that's another sign of not necessarily everyone in the Empire is evil, right?
Yeah.
When this happens, his first thought is to protect the child, not to protect himself, not to
Yeah.
protect his boss who can give him a promotion, but to protect the child that's in the room. And I thought that was really, really deep and interesting, and I loved that. It got him killed, but at least he stood up for something he believed in.
One thing I thought was interesting about this is when we were watching the first two episodes, I thought, man, they've got this big old plan. They're going to be secret. It's going to be like Mission Impossible, like sneaking in and
That's what I was
stuff.
thinking.
And then I'm like, this is the sloppy plan, was to kidnap the family and just force them to do the job for for you.
Yeah, you're thinking like Ocean's 11, Mission Impossible, and then as soon as they're in the door, they're like, all right, guns out, hostages. This is a robbery.
Yeah. And then like they needed the commandant, right, to like help them get in
to unlock it. Yeah.
So like they were reliant on this, you know, like this was a major part of the plan. Crazy.
And I think that's why Luthen was talking about, like, you know, it could just be over. It could be over because if they can't get enough money to get it started and get it all working, then it could just be over. Whereas here, they get everything, and it's a huge robbery, obviously. And so and the Empire definitely takes notice. Because at the end of the episode, there's a huge meeting. Everyone's running to the meeting and say, no one's going home tonight. We want retaliation plans. I want everyone's retaliation plan on my desk by midnight. And so everything, the Empire is like, we're not going to take this lightly.
Yeah, I love the also like it's once again proving, this series is so real, right? So we have this heist, right? Some crazy stuff happens. They're behind time. It's not like they're perfect, like the average heist movie that we've been talking about, right? And then the other thing is they left a bunch of money, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Oh yeah.
there was so much money they just didn't like. It was more money than they could have ever got. But just once again, it was like it wasn't like, oh, they went and cleaned up shop. It was like they got as much as they could, which wasn't even everything. And
It was like
then
a
they even
quarter of
dropped
what was
some
there.
in. Yeah, I
Okay,
know.
there was way more left than what they took,
Right.
and they
And
took
so
80
yeah.
million credits.
That is crazy. It's like I couldn't believe that. I was like, because I kept thinking like they have a lot to go still. They have a lot of money to still get, but yeah, they nowhere even near picking up all that money.
I know I haven't watched them, but I've seen some thumbnails of YouTube videos saying what what the Rebels could buy for 80 million credits, and now I'm like, I really want to know now. How many X-Wings can you buy, or
Oh
Nebulon B
yeah.
frigates,
Mm-hmm.
CR-90 Corvettes? What does 80 million get you?
Yeah.
And so I did not see the Skeen portrayal coming.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But before we bring
Yeah,
that
we
up,
can't get there yet. There's so much
Okay.
more before that.
okay, yeah. No, there's a very specific moment I want to bring up before we talk about that.
Okay.
But,
Go ahead.
I don't. Do we want to jump to that part? Or do we want to keep talking about the heist?
I mean, I think we covered the heist pretty good because the only other thing we touched on earlier was it was also shocking to me, like going back to the fact that everyone was dying, but like people were dying with zero fanfare. If you blinked, you would have missed people dying.
Yes,
Yeah.
there
Literally
wasn't.
someone was dead and then no one says anything, no one does anything. It just, continues on, with the escape. There's not that typical like a
Slow
member of the
music.
crew. Yeah, the slow music and the sadness and people yelling their name and whatever. It was just like bam, dead. Bam, dead. I was just like, was that someone else? Like who what? Dang, they're just like dead. They're gone.
Yeah.
And no one's saying anything. They're just like, let's get out. And then like the commandant, like straight up has a heart attack. He's like overweight.
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked the whole time. Hasn't done anything physical. He dies. Like it's like what?
I was like, none of that was as bad as Wade dying, though.
Yeah. Poor Wade. Oh man.
Oh, that was funny.
But yeah, I thought it was like they're even making the comment out doing like he's sweating, working hard. Like he's been fat and happy for a while. He hasn't worked hard in a long time, and a
Mhm.
little bit of hard work actually kills him.
Yeah. So if anyone tells you that, we know.
Yeah, hard work never killed anybody. Did you watch Andor?
Okay, now you can jump to your point, Q.
Okay, no. So there's one more thing I want to bring up during the heist is, the launching of the TIE fighters when
Yes.
we see him walk on the platform, slide down the ladder, get into the TIE fighter. That was so cool. And it's a whole Top Gun scene. He's firing up the engines and they're getting all the computers on and they're getting ready to launch and the thing lowers them down and they just launch out. That was so cool.
Man,
I
love that because we've seen the TIE fighters just hanging there so many times. And so like I guess I never really thought so much of the action of them getting in there, right? They're running across like these catwalks way up there and then coming down like, oh man, that's so cool.
And then we get the actual eye too.
Wait, just a sec before we move on from the TIE fighter. This show did the TIE fighter error. Do you know what that is? Do you guys know what the TIE fighter error is? It's been going on since A New Hope. So the octagon that is the TIE fighter window.
Yep.
When you see it from the outside, there's one directly above.
Up and down.
But
there's
whenever
a circle
you
in the
see
middle
it,
and the lines that go out.
but when you see it from the inside, it's two, and there's not the one in the middle. And that goes back to an error in A New Hope that they've been redoing. They put it in The Force Awakens. It's literally in the Squadrons game. If you look at it from the outside, it's one way, and you look at it from the inside, it's the other way. And that thing has been going on, but it's an Easter egg, and it's an accident, obviously. So it doesn't even function really, because if you think about it, it's two different TIE fighters they're showing.
Yeah.
But it's been that little mess up has been going on since A New Hope, and I like that they did that Easter egg. When you see it from the outside, it's one way, and you see it from the inside, it's just a funny.
I don't know. I keep on thinking about this after you said Top Gun, but I'm sure someone has to have already done this. But like, someone has to put that scene of them doing that with like the Kenny Loggins song of Danger Zone. Oh man, could you imagine? That would be perfect. And then they're like
so
flipping out all the switches and.
That's great. Oh, maybe I'll play with
that. How awesome was the eye? That beautiful scene.
So good.
And kills the TIE fighters. They barely slip away because Nemec helped them navigate out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to see it from the ground. And there's the natives, the people who live there, and even the stormtroopers, or even the not stormtroopers, but the troopers. They're the army troopers. And they're all just like in awe watching this thing. All these people, and like the Imperials don't even know what's going on behind them. All they know is that this looks beautiful. No idea that a whole bunch of people just died and they were robbed and they were getting to enjoy it.
I absolutely love the image of the woman there when everyone's escaping. You know what's going on and everything, and you don't even know it, crying. but she's crying at the beauty that she's looking at. But it's also like, as from an artistic point of view, we know that all these people have died. Nemec is really, really hurt, but this is also like they succeeded in the spark of the rebellion, and that's what it almost like represents, like that's what she's crying for, and I think it's a very powerful moment in the show.
So here's the moment I wanted to talk about with Skeen. So they escape away and they're flying, right? And I was asking, where are we going? Where are we going? And Skeen is Val is wanting to finish the mission, right? But Skeen's like, Nemec is hurt, he's dying, and Val's like, he's already dead. He's dying, he's dead. There's nothing we can do. And Skeen is fighting, saying, no, this kid's the reason we're here. There's a doctor we can go to. We could possibly save his life. And you're like, wow, I was thinking like, this Skeen guy is like actually, he actually cares about this kid that he's been fighting along with, and I think that this whole scene made his betrayal way worse.
Yeah,
because I'm sitting here thinking he's fighting for Nemec, he's fighting to save this kid's life, and really he wants to get somewhere more secluded so he can run away with the money.
Yeah,
and he goes from being this caring individual, fighting for this kid's life, and it was all just a ruse to hide his true intention. And that was so heartbreaking. And
another thing, too, that's hard to watch is on a second watch through, if you notice, because him and Tarman are pinned down, and he says, cover me. And he shoots for a second, but the second Tarman runs out to go try to get to Val.
Nobody's watching him anymore.
No one's watching him anymore. He ducks back into cover, and then that's when Tarman gets shot. And so when you on a rewatch, you realize he only covered him for as long as he ran out in the open and he got shot. And so it was these little snippets that maybe you didn't even notice of him
betraying and early on.
And it also kind of makes sense when you think about it, why he in particular was so obsessed with Cassian and that he was going to betray him, because he's really nervous about his own intentions.
Right. Yeah, and you could definitely see that, like as you kind of go along. I definitely think like, with Nemec at the end, that was a very strange scene. And then I think that even during like the where he was talking with Cassian, that was interesting too. Because I kept on thinking like, is he giving Cassian one last kind of like test
Test.
or something? You know what I mean? And then when Cassian just like kills him, like that was pretty crazy. And it kind of like briefly passed through my mind, but then my wife even felt the same way because she is like, oh man, what if he was trying to test him? And then Cassian just straight up kills him, He was like just doing one last test to see like, where he was at or whatever, because Vel and Nemec are in there, so he's kind of like, on guard with Cassian, right? And I was like, that would be crazy. It's like he was just trying to test him one last time and then Cassian just kills him.
Mm-hmm.
I
Because
mean,
then Vel's
even if
like,
he
I don't
was-
even believe it.
Yeah, even if he was, I mean, I believe he was telling the truth there, and
Yeah.
it just kind of shows I don't want to say trigger happy, but Cassian is he's quick to make his decision. Let's say,
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
not he shoots first,
Yeah. For sure.
and so I was shocked when he shot. Still, and like we're learning, obviously he can do this kind of thing. We should already know it, but even at the moment when it happened, I was like, what? What? I
Mhm.
thought even if Skeen was telling the truth, that there would be like he would tell him, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. Don't even think about it.
Mhm.
And instead, just shoots him. And I was just like, okay. So
That escalated.
yeah, it's like, and then that's the point where it getting to the end, and there he basically holds up Val and says, "Hey, I'm only gonna take his cut." And I thought that at least is kind of interesting. He's quick to shoot Skeen, but at the same
Mhm.
time, honorable enough to say he's only taking what he was promised.
Yeah.
And then even though he takes the doctor's ship, he still he says he offers him 30,000 credits for it. He says way more than it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting. And I
think.
love.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was interrupting.
No, I was actually gonna move on more to where the galaxy reacted. So if you wanna,
Well, I was just gonna say that this scene, I think it makes Nemec's death so much sadder that he was almost saved, right? Like if he had
Yeah.
just been shot and left there like the other two, we'd have been like, yeah, we saw it coming. But the fact that he got injured and they
saved
decided
him.
to take him to the doctor, right? They decided to put the mission on hold and try to save his life. The fact that he then still died is even worse because Cassian was flying, right? Like when they're having that argument, he's like, okay, where's the doctor? And that's where he was going.
Mhm.
It was Cassian's decision that we're gonna try to save Nemec, and I think I think that death hit him hard too. Like when he found out he died, he was obviously upset, right? He was
Yeah.
upset that Skeen just tried to betray them, and now he doesn't know if he can trust anybody who was there,
Mm-hmm.
and the one kid who he probably thought was the only one who was actually there for his belief. He couldn't save him after he tried to save him, and I think that's what made this death so much sadder was the effort they put in to try to save his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think
And
like it was an interesting scene, like when Cassian comes back, right? Um, Vel's character is really good too, and I feel like that was really like a cool move, I guess, that she even made too, right? Because for two reasons. Well, one, I think she's realizing like Cassian's nature. Like he could have came in and killed them all, right? He could have demanded more money, whatever it might have been, but he is, at least like you're saying, honorable enough to say, you know, I'm just taking my cut. You know, that was what I was hired to do. That's what I'm taking. And then goes above and beyond and gives back uh, Lucian's kyber crystal or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Luthen's
Yep.
kyber crystal. And so anyways, I feel like that may be where she kind of changed her mind, I guess, about him. Because I mean, obviously that would have been shocking, you know, for one to be like, you know, he killed him and then his story doesn't jive with her living with him for the past 3 months or whatever it was, right? And so I think maybe that was kind of what tipped it over. But I was like, she didn't have to give that manifesto, you know, to him. You know, like I feel like she's like, I'm a lot closer, you know, with Nemec than you are. You know,
Mhm.
like we spent all this time together and I actually cared about him. I don't even know, we barely even know you, right? But I feel like that was kind of twofold. One, I feel like she kind of realized that, you know, I guess believed his side of what happened. And then also kind of like realizing that he is, you know, maybe he's not the best guy, but he is at least honorable and lives up to his word, what he says he's going to do, etc. And so her giving that manifesto obviously is going to pay off dividends, I know for a fact, in the future. But I think it also is going to play into when Vel finally, we finally get to see her and Luthen in Coruscant meeting together, you know, or if it is always going to be through proxies, who knows? But, you know, when they're going to start looking for him eventually, you know, I think that also is going to play a big major role because there was a crazy situation. And so she sees how he dealt with that situation where he could have been a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. Well, she says that Nemec wanted Cassian to have the manifesto, and I feel
Right.
like that's Nemec seeing that there's more to Andor than he puts on,
Right.
and we know that
Mm-hmm.
that he's just hiding from himself at the moment, and
Yeah.
he's
Mm-hmm.
trying to. Nemec wants to draw that out, and obviously he's, like we saw at the beginning of this episode, he talked about how Cassian slept like a stone. Like he knows Cassian has these abilities that could be very useful in the fight against the Empire. And if it's his last dying thing that this manifesto can help Cassian see what he needs to do, then that's how he's gonna end it.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how he doesn't even seem like that much. We talked about how little they took out of that vault because it was only like maybe a quarter of it, and there was
Mm-hmm.
still a ton there. But even as much as they took, the galaxy, this is an outright attack on the Empire, and the galaxy is responding because we go over to Mon Mothma and she's giving a speech in the Senate, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. It was
I
cool to
like
see the
that.
Imperial Senate, and then, but she's giving the speech, and everyone is like not listening or not paying attention, which actually one I really like too because there's a lot of empty seats and then no one's even paying attention and this news,
Mm-hmm.
and even she stops in the middle of her speech and looks at her tablet and to
Yeah,
see the news.
she stops in the middle of her speech, and no one even cares that she stopped her speech.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting with all the empty seats and nobody paying attention. It was like, does the Imperial Senate even matter anymore?
Well, it's
Or
only
is it just
5
a
Right.
years
tool? Is
until
it
it's being
just a yeah? It's right now. It's just a tool of the Emperor.
Yeah. And
And
the emperor is like not even there.
Yeah,
You know?
I like that because we know in A New Hope that the Empire is removed or the Senate is basically disbanded. He's Tarkin says the Emperor has just removed the Senate, and the regional governors will now control their systems, and basically the fear of the Death Star will keep everyone in line.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so, but you're also seeing this because this is only about 5 years before that
Mhm.
that
It's
you're
almost like the
seeing
Senate is
doesn't
dissolving itself.
yeah. Palpatine is moving it in such a way that it's becoming irrelevant anyway.
Well, it's
Yeah,
almost
and
like for most of the people, being an imperial senator is about status and where you can go with your ability, and you're again just trying to climb the ladder to be more power, more wealth. And it's not like it was meant to be in the Republic Senate, where you have senators like um, Amidala and Mon Mothma and all
Bail
them who are
Organa.
trying, Bail Organa, who are trying to do good things and help, do relief missions when systems need it and that sort of thing. But in here, they're just, Mon Mothma's husband just wants to be a party, right? That's what it seems like almost all the Imperial senators are. It's just a giant party to try to boost their popularity and their power and their wealth.
Yeah, and I wonder because so we got like kind of like the Easter egg of she was talking about like the Gormans, right? And she was talking about that with her husband too. Like that's like
Yeah.
In the
a
earlier
big thing
episode, yeah.
in earlier episodes. And then you brought up the speech in the Senate. Once again, she was passionately fighting for that in a mostly empty Senate. But whether she was being heard or not, that's still her passion, and she's still trying to do what she can while she's there. And we all know about the Gorman massacre that's going to happen later from the Empire, from Tarkin, right? And so I kind of wonder if there's going to be more of a connection, because they've brought it up multiple times now, and she's on the edge of deciding if she's going to, what she's going to do. Right. And like, it kind of feels like her family's pushing her into it. And, like everything's kind of pushing her into it. Maybe this massacre that happens to the people that she's been passionately trying to protect and help is going to push her over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit more about why that this massacre most likely happened in the next episode.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. Do you guys want to move on to episode 7? Is there anything else
Maybe
you want to
just
mention?
clear up the last comment there from Seth to this episode. He said I still cry for Wade every night, and we're right there with you, buddy. Just every night we shed some tears for Wade. The loss we had was unbearable, and we'll never be able to move on. But let's move on to episode 7.
So this episode was great. I mean, because I kind of like the format that they're doing here.
Yeah, episode 7 is kind of is unique in a way. It's the only one that's not necessarily tied to a story arc of 3 episodes. It's kind of on its own, and so it's unique in this series.
And the first thing we kind of touched on it earlier parts, but it starts again. The episode starts with Cyril and his mom berating him about his brown suit. And I found it interesting because he's like, it's a brown suit. Who cares? It's brown. But that's the whole point, is it's brown. He's standing out. When you look where he's being basically applying for work, they're all wearing the exact same suit and tie. Everything is exactly the same color. And she's basically telling him, like, why are you trying to stand out?
Well, that's exactly her line. She says, what makes you believe the Bureau of Standards, which is where he's trying to look, the Bureau of Standards is in the market for individuals. So in other words, that's not, she just thinks that they just want somebody to fit in, to be another bot in a cubicle and not stand out. And that's even him, he obviously, it looks nice. He even says it's tailored. Like, it's not like he looks unprofessional. He just stands out.
Which is not what the Empire wants. It's the individuality that they're trying to sniff out, which to me goes to your point, Q, of him potentially joining the rebellion at some point. Because even someone who's you feel like him as a character, he's very strict in what he wants and everything, and he's a very kind of tightly wound individual. But at the same time, you're seeing he has his own fashion sense or his own way he carries himself. And so this feels like that is part of him and the way he feels, and maybe that could be some of the things that lead him to the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite part, I think, of this episode was we get to see Wolf Yularen.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That
love it because
was-
there's nothing that says this is Yularen, you know?
It does say in the
If you watch the subtitles, it
the
says
subtitles,
Yularen
yep.
as the one who starts to speak. That's the only place you see his name or hear it mentioned, is if you watch it with the subtitles. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's him, the white hair and the white mustache, but that was
I
it was
like-
awesome to get to see him.
and
in
I
live
really like
action.
that, because when he comes in, you can as again to the point that Tony Gilroy is saying, is they're not doing Easter eggs and fan service and stuff. And so again, the fan service, we know as fans, but no, as if you're just someone who doesn't know who Wolf Yularen is, you have never watched the Clone Wars or read any of the Thrawn books or any of the books that he's mentioned in.
Mm-hmm.
And as a normal fan watching this, all you need to understand is, you know, that he is the leader, the highest ranking individual at the ISB. He
Mhm.
is the person in charge of the ISB.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
and
and
that's
it's-
how important this attack was. Is he
How
is
personal
there
it
to,
was. Yeah.
he is there to to give a speech. And I love the
Yeah.
fact in the speech he goes, "I spoke with Emperor Palpatine last night."
Yes. I love that too.
How many people, even in the Empire, do you think get appearances with Palpatine?
Right.
Exactly.
Very few. Very few.
Mm-hmm. And I
so
think
the fact
that's
that
what
he has this authority.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, he was saying that to give everyone chills and
Yes.
to like put the fear into them. Like, this is the situation right now. And like the statement that he makes too, when he says the only question that we need to answer is how tight to close our fist. Like, once again, like, they have some amazing writing and it is
Well,
so perfect. Like when
you-
he hit that, I was like, that's it.
When he said that, did you not instantly think of Leia
Yeah.
in her line where she goes, talking to Tarkin, the tighter you clench your fist, the more star systems will slip through your grasp.
Yep.
That's exactly what this is starting to do.
I know, and it totally is. And the other thing is, I love the fact that, okay, they are doing, you know, what they feel is like the best in this situation, right? But then on the other hand, you have Luthen, who sees through it and knew, right? And this is where we get that conversation, which, once again, kind of side note, it blew me away that Mon Mothma didn't even know he was doing this.
Right?
I had a
Right.
feeling that they were like all in on this together, but now
And she
you
had
kind of
no idea.
Yeah, you backtrack and realize that Luthen's saying, I need money, I need money, I need money. And Mon Mothma's saying, I can't do it right now. It's getting harder and harder, and I can't get you what you need, blah, blah, blah. And so
So
he's
he
like,
went out
okay,
and-
I got to get money on my own, right? And so, and now it's really interesting because you have these two characters who you thought were like, you know, in on this 100% together. Now both of them are kind of butting heads and at odds about this situation. But
Mhm.
Luthen, on the other hand, Luthen isn't, you know, in the Senate floor with Mon Mothma, right? Trying to fight on two fronts. He's fighting on one front, and he knows that if they do this, that they're going to do what they're going to do. Like, he knew this was going to happen. And so they're thinking,
Mhm.
okay, you know, like ISB, the Empire's like, okay, we need to like strike back hard. And Luthen's like, you know, I need the Empire to strike back hard.
I-
So
Yeah.
it's like,
I did agree. I
I-
thought Go ahead, Q.
Oh, I was gonna talk more on that the fan service that was Wolf Yularen, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
it's fan service, but it's not fan service because it's not like they took this established character from the Clone Wars and put him in
Mm-hmm.
this role, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was already in this role. We knew it was canon that he was in ISB. So it's fan service, but it's fan service that fit perfectly with how the universe has been unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting that in when he's walking around the room, they show the faces of these supervisors, and then you see Major Partagast sitting there, he's the guy who's been like berating these guys and bossing around, giving them orders. Oh, you didn't do this. I might as well give it to somebody else who's competent, right? But then he's sitting there quietly, not speaking up. He's just listening to what Yularen has to say, and that's the kind of like respect and power that Wolf Yularen has. There's this character that we've come to know, Major Partagast, as the boss of this group that we're learning about, and even he's got a boss that has to quietly sit there and listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's huge. I think Tyler had mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like Yularen is also in like the Thrawn books, and it just kind of goes more into the point of how big of a deal it was to have like a conference with Palpatine. Like in those books as well, Thrawn has a chance to actually speak face to face with the Emperor, with Palpatine. And that is like, even there, like it's just proving how much of a big deal it is. Like there probably was only maybe like 5 people, in the whole empire, they get to like speak face to face with him. Like it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
Again, Tarkin, well, obviously we know Yularen, Thrawn, Vader, Mas Amedda.
Mm-hmm. And that's like the public front is Mas Amedda. So
yeah.
I think that's really the majority of people.
Yeah, there's not many that like have the ability to talk to him when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's only if he needs something from you would you ever hear from the Emperor, and even then he's more likely going to go through somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to touch on kind of what Josiah was talking about. I had no idea that Mon Mothma didn't know about the plans that was going on, and I really liked what Luthen said because and it almost made me think he's more Saw Gerrera than Mon Mothma. He's more the ugly way.
Mm-hmm.
The maybe not so.
I don't think so.
Not as the right way, but needs to get done.
I don't think because Saw Gerrera is victory at all costs, right?
Yes.
And Mon Mothma is never put anybody in harm's way to win.
Mm-hmm.
But this conversation that she has with Luthen, she's saying that the Empire is going to retaliate, and she does not want that. She doesn't want anybody to be, and he's not like, I want people to get hurt and suffer, but he wants the Empire to retaliate so people see how bad the Empire is. When people see the Empire retaliating much worse than what they got, then people will start to join them, right? They'll understand how evil the Empire is. They won't be able to stand back anymore and just watch as the Empire's grip gets tighter and tighter. As they're doing that, the system, like Leia says, systems will slip through their grip. And that's what he wants. He doesn't want people to get hurt and suffer, but he wants people to see the Empire for what they are.
Yeah, and to your point, his actual line is, the Empire has been choking us so slowly, we're starting not to notice.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, it's time to force their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And like, just to your point is, so it's time to make them crack down like we know they're going to.
Yeah.
And because, it almost goes back to what Nemec said, that it's happening so quickly that you don't notice, and they're hiding behind all of these atrocities. But at the same time, they're slowly doing this, and people are, it's just becoming normal life in the universe. But this is just normal life, and you just have to accept that. And that's kind of what Luthen is getting at, that it's happening so slowly that people are just starting to accept it. We're not even thinking about it anymore, and it's time to show them that the Empire is so bad that they're going to crack down so hard on this. They're going to they literally call the meeting, "We need your retaliation plan for a
Yeah.
robbery." And I also going to what Deidre said, and she's like, they're treating this like a robbery, and her little sidekick, I don't know his name, is like, what would you call it? And I just, this moment was like so great. She's like, an announcement.
I loved that line.
Yeah,
It was so great. Like, she said it.
Yeah.
The title.
and yeah, they're announcing, the rebels are basically announcing that they exist. We're here, and we are not going to take what the Empire has given. I'm not going to sit here and be thankful. And so that, just like you said, Luthen, it just, those, there's a few of those lines that just in this episode really hit. And this is like one of the great things about this show is it's a lot of talking, but it's a lot of, in the conversations, you hang on every conversation, you know, because the speech that you learn is giving, like you mentioned, the plan is how hard are we gonna crack down, basically. And so but every line is crafted so excellently that while it might not be action, you're still sitting on the edge of your seat being like, okay, I have to pay attention to every sentence that's being said in this show. And that is what this episode does so well. There are so many lines that are just excellent. Well, I liked, because when Mon Mothma's talking to Luthen, he's like, revolutions are expensive. And
Yeah, that was a good one too.
I want to, you guys want to talk about the both Mon Mothma and her childhood friend as she's in the party in her house, and how he's like, you probably don't want to confide in me because of this and this and this, and that my politics are probably a little strong for you.
Yes.
I loved that. And she starts to actually tell him, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
And she's discussing, and she's trying to allude that she needs help getting funds, and he's like, well, what's this for? Better you not know. And then she says the line back to him that my politics might be a little strong for you. And it's like, dun dun dun.
Yeah. She's slowly starting to come into her way, and I really loved that. Was an amazing scene. We haven't talked at all about Cassian going back to get Marva.
Yeah,
I was gonna bring up, we get to see the best character in the show again. B2 emo.
And that was sad.
Isn't it?
He was so happy to see him.
Oh, it was like almost heartbreaking when he's like, can I talk now?
Yeah.
No, B.
Oh.
And but yeah, that scene when he's like, well, why are you staying here? And okay, before we get to that, when he's walking through the square, and you hear the stormtroopers, and he has the flashback, and you see the clone troopers, almost like the one that you have there sitting on your desk there. And you get that flashback, and his dad is just trying to stop them from throwing rocks at him, and he gets included with them, which is
Yeah.
ironic because it is exactly what happens in this episode to Cassian. But I don't know if you noticed this, and I didn't even think about it before, but during the flashback is when it hit me. The name he chose for the mission on Aldani was Clem.
Yeah.
That was his dad's name. I didn't even think about that until I saw that flashback, and then they show how he was hung, and it's just like, oh man, he actually, then, you know, he had a good relationship with his dad too, and it's
Yeah.
exactly what Luthen had talked about, where they'll hang you in the square just like your dad. And so the Marva part where she's like, she's trying to tell him that she's not going to leave because the rebellion's here. And she, I have a hard time. How did Cassian not tell her when she's like, when I heard of the reports of the robbery on Aldani, and like, how did, you'd almost feel like, tell her.
Well, because she said that heroes like that standing up against the Empire, but that's when then he's like dead heroes or something like that. You know, people die, and the reason he doesn't tell her is because he doesn't want her to go. You know, look, I'm a freedom fighter. No, he did it. He's still in his head trying to tell himself he did it just for the money, so that he could get her out of there. I love that fact that, you know, he got this money, he snuck back in to try to get her out somewhere warm and dry, so they're not living in the cold and wet anymore, like you said.
And the way, but I just like the way she felt. She says she's never walked through that square again because of what happened to Clem. And then you get this moment where she says, I walked through the square with a smile on my face.
She put on her best coat and walked through the square with a smile on her face. Yeah.
And it just almost gives you kind of chills of like,
Yeah.
okay, she's ready to stand up. She's ready for the rebellion. She's like, there's got to be work to be done. And another thing, he's like, well, we'll go somewhere where the Empire's not. And she's like, that doesn't exist. The only place it exists is in my head. They can't take it they can't build barracks in my mind. And it's super interesting too, because then you compare that when he goes back to talk with Bix.
Yeah.
And she tells him that you need to get out of here.
And Tim died.
And that long Tim.
Yeah.
And that basically everyone on Ferrix blames Cassian for it.
Yeah.
Which you can understand.
Yeah, because I don't know the full story.
And he's like, well, what about, he says to her, it was your crazy boyfriend that turned me in. And that's where it's like, okay, Cassian, you're being a bit of a jerk here. Calm down.
Yeah.
I mean, you did kill 2 people. Again, they might have been picking on you, and I mean, it doesn't matter. It's basically, again, we're on this trail of things just happen to Cassian. Not a lot of this is his choice. And I think that's what we're building to. Because obviously we know in Rogue One, he's the one that makes the choice to go to Scarif. It's his choice.
Yeah.
No one forced him to do it.
Yeah.
And so we're still seeing in this episode him mostly just reacting to what's happening. And
I think this whole scene there was really good. Like you had mentioned, like getting the full story of Clem. We've all been kind of wondering about that all the way from, you know, when we first see Clem and Marva together, you're kind of like, okay, what happened to Clem? And then when you hear, you know, Luthen say that, and it, you know, it really hits him. So then you're kind of wondering, like, how did that all happen? So you get to see that. So that hits you right in the feels. And then, like you said, then there's the kind of like, you start thinking in your head about him picking Clem for that mission. It's really like to honor him, and stuff like that. And so like that was really cool. And then you also get like a little bit of a throwback with him and Bix too, right? Because he jumps over the wall, right? And he was like, remember, like when I was doing this when we were like kids, which we kind of all felt like was the case, like that they knew each other for a long time. And then she was like, what'd you say? Like, you shouldn't be here or something. She was like, that. He's like, that's what your dad said too, or something. Like, it was like so good.
That's what your dad said to me. You shouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, you should be here right now. I was like, yeah, that's what your dad said too. It was like, oh, it's so good. But once again, like it also gave us a little bit more because they kind of left it like more like a real big mystery of their relationship to some extent, and then giving us this little piece kind of like showed like what we kind of all felt was the case. So like they were like probably really good friends from being kids, had a little bit of like more than friends relationship, but their friendship was way longer probably than their romantic relationship ever was. And so then you can kind of see like the whole thing with her and Tim, and then her, like how she felt about him with other girls, like there is still like a little bit of this, like she's all like saying he's sleeping around and all that type of stuff. There's a little bit more to the story and you can understand it a little bit more. And that was all based on just like a few sentences that they threw us in this episode. And so, yeah, I thought it was really good. I mean, Marva's whole story really hits you in the feels, and how she's standing up finally after all these years, right? And then you get to see the Clem story, like in like, oh man, that really guts you too. And then you get a little bit with like Bix too. Like I thought that was, once again, some of these things that are continue to be built on. And finally, the other thing we haven't mentioned yet is Marva then hits him with one more thing before he leaves. If he didn't already felt like daggers all over, says like, stop looking for your sister.
That's
So like, oh,
that's the thing I was going to ask you. I was like, do you think that that's the end of that story, or
they brought it up again? So I don't know if they will, right? Like,
and yeah, she put
obviously
up
it's still a thought on their mind.
One thing that kind of hit me more in the feel is not just that what she said to stop looking for your sister, but I like the part where Cassian says basically, I can't leave you. I can't leave you here to do that. I would worry about you constantly. And she goes, well, that's just love. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
But then she says don't look for your sister. And I thought that was an interesting idea because I feel like there's still more to be said to what's happened there.
Because she said that there's no survivors on Canary. What happened there was not your responsibility. So what was it that happened?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's huge. I feel like they can't just drop bombs on us like that and never have any conclusion. That's too big. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but multiple times they showed 2 of those blowguns. There's 2 blowguns in his room. And I was like, why would there be 2? Is one his and one his sister's? Like, how would, if they left at that moment, how would there have been 2? Like, I was like, I don't know that, and it's weird. And she only picked up one specifically and was looking at it lovingly. And so I was like, is this the sister's or is this his? Like, I was like, oh man, like, I don't know. Like, I was like, is there more to the sister after that moment, or was that the last time he saw his sister?
Because obviously they took him from there. We don't know if that was the last time he was there, right? We don't know that full story. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Some explaining what needs to go on.
Oh man!
So
but then we also get in this episode, we get Luthen's assistant who goes to meet secretly with Vel.
Yeah,
and talk about briefly recap the mission. Well, these people they'll remember Terramin, Gorn, and Nemec but then she doesn't mention Skeen, and then Val goes, "Is that all?" And then the other girl goes, "We had our doubts about Skeen. That's one less thing to worry about." But then basically tasks Vel with going out and finding Cassian, capturing him, or even potentially killing him, saying we can't have him going out there with Luthen in his head.
That
Right.
line was so interesting to me. I was like, what does she mean by that? Does she mean that maybe he could give up Luthen? Like he could be a piece that would ruin their would I can't think of the word.
Jeopardize.
Jeopardize, yeah, that they'd be found out.
Mhm.
And is that what she's meaning? Or maybe she doesn't want Luthen's radical ideas in his head.
No, I think
Because-
it's more like they don't want him to link back to Luthen.
I think
Yeah.
that's true. I think
Yeah.
you're right there.
I will say, like on a side note, you know, both of them, like, you know, look pretty good in their little outfits, right? But like Vel, after, you know, we've seen her like living on nothing, living on scraps for 3 months, she cleaned up pretty good in Coruscant. Cleaned up pretty good.
That's I think Kaloni said, "Is it bad that I almost didn't recognize Vel when she's all cleaned up and in nice clothes?"
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same way for a second. It took me a second because I was like, wait a second, who's this? And then also the assistant, like I could be wrong here. I'd have to watch it again, but I'm pretty sure like I think this one she has like her hair down and it's like long. And when she was
Yep.
like at the place, it was like all up.
It's done up. Yeah.
Yeah. So like she looked a
Definitely
little
trying to
different
hide.
too. And when she was going, and then she also had that hood on, right? At the beginning. And like
When she
Yeah, I
walked by
almost
the
didn't recognize her.
stormtroopers.
for a second, like it was like a second, but it was a long second. It was like one of those seconds that felt like an eternity. I was
Like
like,
when you say Tim.
yeah, like it was the second M of Tim. I was like, is this freaking Leia? You know, like
Oh,
with like the
no.
you know, like with the hood and everything, and kind of like, you know, secretive and all this type of stuff. Like for a second, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Well, then you get Vel asking about Cinta. Have you heard from Cinta?
Yeah.
And the other girl's response is she's doing what she was told.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, what was her part of the mission that even Vel doesn't know what's going on?
Which I know we're gonna get more of because they did show her on Aldhani when in the Star Destroyer coming above,
that was so
and then
cool.
they show
yeah.
Gave
and
me,
then they
that gave
show
me
her
Jedi
on the
Rogue One vibes.
on the swoop bike or
Speeder
whatever the
thing.
kind of thing she's on, but that's all they showed in this episode of her. But but again, just like Cyril, because they're showing us those little snippets, I feel like we're gonna continue to get some of their story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that
I
that will be interesting to like see if there's gonna be also more on Aldhani, at least for a while.
Yeah, because that's where the retaliation's gonna be. You would think. You'd think that there's gonna be some kind of like massacre. They're gonna kill the Aldanis that were viewing the eye.
Something.
Because even they say in one of their meetings that if someone uses a cultural tradition or something like the Eye of the Aldani, if they use something like that to get away with that is not going to be okay.
Yeah.
They're going to crack down on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of terrifying, really. And so I like you get to the part where Deidre is still fighting to get the information from Ferrix from what's the other guy's name? The the ding dong who's trying to hold her up. And he wants to
Oh, yeah.
he wants to
what was
out
that guy's
her
name?
in front of the rest of the supervisors and be like, "No, you're trying to reach for
Supervisor
power." Blevin. Okay.
Yeah.
Blevin's trying to out her in front of everyone that she's trying to push her way up and the way she deals with him is so amazing. Like what she's finding out, all this information that she's been digging up, and the way he talks about sectors, which, from what I understood, is the way she talks about that Major Partagas, the head guy there. He's the one that invented these sectors.
Yeah.
It's his system that they're using, which is kind of interesting. And I'm just like, she's like, do you think these rebels care about what lines we draw on maps?
Yeah.
Like, why would they even care about that? And so I found it really interesting because Blevin gets his butt kicked and he's like, hey, nope, taking that away from you, giving that to Deidre, and she's going to be in charge of this going forward.
Yeah,
And-
because I love it. His last little snippet is, imagine if everyone in this room played as loose with the rules as you, talking to Deidre, and then Major Partagas goes, excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
He was using it as an insult, and he's like, maybe we should do that.
Mm-hmm.
Have some more
Yeah.
free thinkers.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have that up right now, but I love that whole interaction. And then too, when he gives her the sector, like I'm spacing exactly what the wording was, but that was so good too. When he was like, he basically was just like, well, obviously, like, you know, she has, you know, enough like interest in the sector, so she should take it over, and you like clearly something rather,
clearly are
but-
lacking in you're not
It's a
getting
great
your
So he's saying it's a great interest to Dedra, and it's a distraction to
There it
Blevin.
is. Yeah, that was so good. He's such a good like actor, you know, leader in like that group of people too. That it's just like everything he says is like so good. Because even like initially when she says about the lines, like Tyler was mentioning, he was like, "Are you? So you're saying like my system is flawed or whatever, you know?"
and her line.
But I like that it might be his system, but if he's actually potentially willing to take advice and change things for the better. He's not like, this is mine, this is how we're doing it, my way or the highway. He's like, all right, somebody's actually got a good idea here. Let's roll with it. See what we can come up with.
Her line, because he goes, are you saying there's something wrong with my line or my plan, basically? And she goes, systems either change or die.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting one. And I like,
brave thing to say to the guy who made the system.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Systems either change or die. But and I like how he gives her all this extra stuff, but they have this quick little meeting afterwards as they walk out. He tells her, "Good job. Watch your back."
Yeah.
I
and
love that.
I
And
love that. Yeah.
I don't think that's a direct threat from him.
It's not.
Yeah.
I think it's good. He's trying to like, okay, you did good, but that put a target on your back, so you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Got to watch your back.
I think
not from him, but from other people that are wanting that power.
Like Blevin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Blevin,
especially
100%.
Blevin, who lost his power to her.
Yeah, but even everyone else, and once again, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about him before. You know, when they had that little mediation, right, between Deidre and Blevin before. You know, I love the fact that he takes the time to not only like, it's not like he's just 100% criticizing and saying you're bad and you're dumb and why are you doing that and whatever. Like he's taking these moments to, you know, in his own way, teach all these people. He's training them, right? And so I love the fact that, you know, he does those things. Like he leaves and he's like, walk with me, you know, like he's done that multiple times now, right? And so I think that that's a really cool, like it's just proves like he's a really good leader, you know, like in any situation, even though he's like, you know, a major player in the ISB, he's actually just a really good leader. And he's saying, hey, like you said, he's okay to take criticism himself, right? If someone can give him a better idea, yeah, he'll take it. And then on top of it, not only is he just saying you did this wrong, but then he's like, here's a way that you can do better, or this isn't the only thing, like, okay, you did bad here, but you're doing really good on this, so keep doing that. And then this little situation, like you were saying, I definitely don't think it was a threat. I think he was saying, good job, you're doing good, what you're doing, I see what you're trying to do and you're doing good, but now you got to be careful because now you're reaching out for, that status or whatever that other people are also reaching out for.
Or have
Mhm.
that they want to
Yeah.
keep.
Right. Because she's new, right? Blevin was even making fun of her about it, right? Like that
Because she only
only
kind of
operates-
being junior.
She only has like 2 sectors and he has 6.
Well, now she has 3 and he has 5.
Oh.
So,
And an interesting sector with stuff going on.
Yeah, with something going on in it.
yeah.
So then we get to
Planet Florida.
Namos.
Woo!
Did anybody get Lego summer vacation vibes from this? That's all I was thinking about.
Yeah,
Right?
you just see like Vader like in his like coming out of the water.
His
just, like,
tank
in a-
top,
his tank top, yeah. Oh man.
building sandcastles and playing volleyball with the Emperor.
Yeah, this was the moment. No.
This is where they
And
went. No,
It's just
I loved the
Interesting.
music that played when they introduced this planet.
very different.
it was-
but
It was like woodwinds, but with like an electronic
Mhm.
electro mix to it.
What do you guys
I
think
thought
of
it
like
was cool.
the time frame? Like what do you think that how long do you think this time it feels like it's a time jump because he felt very comfortable there. They're talking about food. He already has like a secret hiding place for his money. Like what do you guys
I mean,
think?
it's probably like
Maybe a
couple
week or
months,
so.
maybe.
maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's like,
I'm
this is
Week
serious.
Cassian.
though, man, they seemed really comfortable for a week, but
He's like, it's
I mean,
Cassian. He knows
he's-
good hiding places
he-
and he's smooth. So
Yeah, he's a smooth talker. He found
Keith.
a nice local.
no, that's what I was telling Lily. I was like, my wife, I was telling her the only thing I can think is it could be a short amount of time, but it's a girl he already knew. Because I was like, he seems really comfortable. She seemed that like not even him, like he could be suave and smooth,
don't
just
forget
like
the
the type of
Pizos.
guy. Yeah, but she seems very comfortable with him. This isn't like some bought and paid for girl. Like, she seems pretty comfortable there, just chilling, right? And then like just the
Mhm.
whole hiding place, like I feel like that was a really good hiding place. And like he's pretty comfortable, like, commuting the planet too. I don't know, like I feel more like Quinton. I feel like it could be like a month or something like, but
Maybe.
and maybe we'll see, I guess, if they end up mentioning it because the Empire's plan, I'm sure it's not like overnight and they're going to implement it. I feel like they're probably scheming something big,
So
Well, and then we get him walking and there's people running by him, and then he sees a stormtrooper behind him, kind of chasing him, and then obviously he's always looking over his shoulder. He's always been the kind of guy who always look over his shoulder, and that gets him in trouble. Just looking around, literally just looking
Yeah.
around, and the Empire's like, "Oh, you must be a bad guy. You were looking around.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to jail for 6
I think-
years."
I think
Yeah,
this is his
6
moment where
years.
it used to be 6 months, now it's 6 years. And what I
Mhm.
love about that is that if he were to actually fulfill his entire 6 years, it would be after A New Hope. He wouldn't get out of prison until after A New Hope, which means he wouldn't have been there in Rogue One. He wouldn't have been doing what he does for the rebellion. So obviously something happens where he gets out of prison.
Are we gonna get?
Mhm.
Is Vel gonna do a prison heist and get him out of there? Is that what
Yeah.
we're gonna see?
Prison break in Star Wars? Oh,
Yeah,
that's actually kind of
exactly.
awesome.
That would be really cool. She like gets arrested just to get him out.
That would be pretty sick.
Mhm.
And then we get to see the
So
droids.
one thing, the sand
K2.
sand trooper that stops him.
Mhm.
I like how
Easter egg.
The
Easter
trooper
egg.
says, the tourists don't run," and he's like, "I wasn't running." The stormtrooper never saw him actually run. He just all he saw was that he was sweating because he's on a beach in a very warm area. I'd be sweating too.
So Easter egg. The stormtrooper is voiced by Sam Witwer. Who does Darth Maul in the Clone Wars and Rebels and Solo and with Starkiller. That's who the stormtrooper, the sand trooper that stops him. That's who does the voice.
Huh.
And
didn't
I also
notice
thought
that.
it was really interesting that the K2 droid takes what he says as literal. Hang on to him. Tell him you
Just
mean
keep saying,
watch.
hang.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and then he picks him up by his throat, and he's yelling at the sand trooper to tell him you mean watch.
Yeah.
And you know, if you've played Fallen Order, that those things are not easy to take down.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting because you first saw him, you're like, you see the droid, and you're like, oh, K2.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, no. These things
And
are
then
scary.
there's like a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just grabbing people and
Oh, he
as
meant
they're trying
watch.
to run away.
Oh man.
Rough.
And so, yeah, he gets the 6-year sentence. And I think this is
wonder
the
if-
moment that literally he gets arrested for just being on the beach, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this is-
Anti-imperial activity.
Yeah.
No,
And-
he wasn't. He was the
He
anti-imperial
never even
activity
said
ran
anything.
past him.
Yeah.
And I think this is the moment that's going to tell him that he can't just not fight, because obviously
Mhm.
if stuff like this, anyone can be arrested for anything, and there's no trial. There was no trial. They read what he was charged with and sentenced him.
Yeah.
He didn't get a trial. He didn't get. She
Yeah, this
even
wasn't a
tells him,
trial. It was a sentencing.
Mhm.
and she tells him, "Quit talking to me, otherwise you might get another resisting another
Resisting a
Court
resisting
judgment.
orders
charge."
or something.
Yeah.
Resisting a judgment.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that is, and once again, it kind of goes back to like really thinking how long this has been, because it would be pretty crazy if they could get all of these like orders out to the systems like that quickly to like make everything harsher, to make, you know, people more in fear of the Empire. It definitely seemed new. Like they were all kind of, even like her giving it was kind of like it was a new thing, you know, like. Yeah, I think they even mentioned something along the lines of that, like that they're trying to make everything harsher. That it
So
came
it
through.
used to be a 6-month sentence, and now it's 6 years.
Yeah. So yeah,
She says apologies all around. Like what? You're not sorry
She doesn't
for
even
anything.
care, and she just reads it and goes.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that was real interesting.
So, we got
I'm
we
wondering
have a
if
lot of
we're gonna get-
storylines.
If we're gonna get the K2, if he's gonna somehow reprogram a droid while he's in prison, and that'll help him escape.
Ooh, I like that.
That's
And then at the
off.
very end of the episode, what do we get?
So
We get
as Quinton
we
was
get
mentioned,
more. I was gonna say at the very end of the episode, after that sentencing, you get Cyril sitting there, going through his stuff in his gray suit now and black tie, just like everybody else. But you can
looking
tell
like
he just doesn't
he's bored out of his mind, and
doesn't want to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
which
then
makes
you
him
get the-
prime for rebellion.
get
He doesn't
the-
want to fit in. He doesn't want to have to be the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And for the credits, you get the music for the like we're showing when the planet first came on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so
Mhm.
great. Yeah, and we get, so as we kind of talked about, the next set of episodes will be so 8, 9, and 10 are basically going to be another arc that we've seen, because we got this one like off that's not really part of an arc,
Mm-hmm.
is what this episode was, but the next 3 are going to be part of an arc, and then you're going to get the last 2, the finale, are going to be like a 2-part finale.
So the next 3 episodes are slow build up to his prison break, right? Planning and it happening, and then the final 2 episodes are his resolve being built and his official joining the Empire, or joining the rebellion.
Dang!
and then all of season 2 we're going to see him fighting, doing missions for the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, this show's so
Man, I'm so
I'm excited for season 2, and we still have
I know.
5
I am. I'm
episodes left.
totally excited for season 2, and like I'm okay with that.
good, right? Oh, it's so
man.
good. All right,
But-
guys. Well,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, that was a blast. I'm so happy to be back and with you guys talking about Star Wars, talking about Andor, and yeah, I'm super excited for this week's episode, and what it all brings. But I'm just gonna continue to think what's gonna happen next episode, because it could go so many different ways for real.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this has been a fun chat. I know we've had a couple of weeks off, and it's just been good to get to actually discuss it again.
Yeah.
But nice to have some chatters in as well.
Mhm.
Always nice to see Seth around.
Yeah, big shout out to the chat. Seth, always. He just joined Carpool Gaming, which I don't know if you guys have seen that. But Carpool Gaming
I
has,
read that he joined them. Yeah.
yeah,
his
they
Twitter.
they're so amazing. I love those guys. And so he's in the Nintendo Drive with Sean Capri and with Lockleth, and their show is super amazing. So anybody watching, definitely go check them out. I was lucky enough to guest on Carpool Gaming on We the Gamer Cast with Sean. Everybody there is so amazing. So Seth fits in perfectly because he's such a great guy. But yeah, definitely check that out. It's a Nintendo podcast, but it's just a good time. Kaloni, thank you always for jumping in, being with us. Renaissance Men, both of you guys, but Stu, if that's you, yeah, thank you for jumping in. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully I can get on your show soon. That'd be fun. And we had Cream Pie Lars, had some awesome takes. Thanks for jumping in the chat. And let's see, who else? Do we have anyone else? No, I think that was it. But yeah, thank you, chat. As always, makes it more fun for us to bounce ideas off of you guys and hear your thoughts on Star Wars as well. So thank you guys.
Yeah, you guys bring up points that maybe we don't always think of, and so it's good to kind of discuss them. And that's the fun of doing the show live.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, Josiah, do you got anything going on? What do you got? Your giveaway going on still?
Yeah, so this month's giveaway, still got that going on. It's on my Twitter channel, but it's also in kind of like in conjunction with Hezekiah's YouTube channel. But yeah, basically I'm giving away 3 months of Game Pass Ultimate, 3 months PlayStation Premium, or like GeForce Now. Really any of those premium services. Like if you enter and you win, I'll give you 3 months of any of them. So yeah, definitely jump on that. Yeah, anyone that you choose. Yeah, like I'll definitely hook you up. We got some cool things coming. Hezekiah's got a couple of big videos. I'll just take one extra minute. I don't want to take up too much time about this, but yeah, so Hezekiah has just gotten so much love from the community here, from the Twitter community, and the gaming community as whole. Met so many cool people that are just 100% supporting Hezekiah, his YouTube channel, and everything that he's endeavoring to do. Just recently, I don't know if you guys saw, somebody sent Hezekiah an Amazon Fire Stick, a 4K one, so he can play from the TV, play Amazon Luna. And so, yeah, that was super awesome. And I'll just go ahead and say this. It's kind of a little bit of a surprise because the video hasn't went out yet. It's probably going to be a couple of days before it comes out yet. But from the video of Hezekiah just being devastated about Stadia closing, somebody in the comments was just like, oh man, like they felt so bad for Hezekiah. And they said, I would be willing to buy him an Xbox to fill that gaming void. And so I didn't believe it. My wife didn't believe it. I didn't even tell Hezekiah because I was like, I want it to be a surprise if it really is. If it doesn't happen, I don't want him to get all hyped for nothing because he's super excited to get one. And anyways, it showed up. I mean, so yeah, Jar the Second. So my good friend on Twitter, Jar the Second, sends Hezekiah an Xbox Series S just because he's a generous guy and he wants Hezekiah to not feel bad about losing Stadia. So yeah, we have an Xbox Series S in the house and I am going to be playing it too. So yeah, that was super awesome. And that's kind of what's going on with me on Twitter and with Hezekiah's channel. We streamed for the first time. I don't even know if I mentioned this before, but also someone who's jumped in the Mostly Star Wars chat, Joe, he actually, and I can't remember if I told you guys this, but he sent Hezekiah a whole package to start streaming. So he sent him a 4K capture card. He sent him a webcam, a ring light, and yeah, so he just got him all set up to stream. And so I'm just blown away by all the love people have been giving Hezekiah, and it's just amazing to see. It's amazing to see him happy and excited to do this, you know, to be on camera, to stream. We started streaming. I said I'd gonna take a minute, but this is going way too long. But we started streaming, and within 10 minutes of our first stream, YouTube took our video down and put like a strike on us and gave us a warning. And I didn't know this, and it's my fault because I didn't read the terms and conditions of YouTube. But if you're underage, you can't stream by yourself, I guess. So you have to have an adult present with you, 100% visible on camera. So I had no idea that was the thing. So anyway, so now I'm kind of like shadow banned a little bit, like on his channel for streaming. So Hezekiah wanted to stream so bad, I created a Twitch for him. So now Hezekiah also has a Twitch channel. We'll have to eventually put that in there too. Anyways, we jumped on, we streamed for 2 hours on Twitch. It was awesome. At one point we had like 10 or 12 people watching, and it was like his first stream, and it was a blast. He was playing Pokemon Arceus and Fall Guys, and I think he jumped on, did some Animal Crossing, showed everybody his island. But I mean, that was crazy. I mean, 12 people watching, that was just heartwarming for me. Love seeing people jump in the chat. That was so cool. And yeah, I'm a happy and proud dad. But yeah, that's way too much about us. So yeah.
No, that's awesome.
That's what's going on though.
I don't got too much going on. I'm trying to do more videos on my channel, do some more streaming eventually there. And yeah, that's about it. You can also follow me on Twitter. Links are in the description. And yeah, fun content there. I'm a little sad because my Canucks are sucking again. So,
oof, yeah, yeah. Our good friend Bruce Togo Bap, he's a big hockey fan
chirping
too.
me.
So yeah,
he's chirping me. So,
yeah.
But yeah, if you want to give me a follow or subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate that. Trying to get that to grow. And yeah, what about you, Q?
Honestly, I got nothing going on. I'm just happy to be back talking about Star Wars.
Yeah, that's good.
So like and subscribe. Mostly
Yes,
Star Wars,
please.
we appreciate it.
Hit that bell because recently we haven't been on 100% same time schedule. So hit that bell so you get notified when we jump on and start talking crazy about Star Wars.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. And thanks to everyone in chat. And thanks to everyone listening on the podcast later. We greatly appreciate your support.
May the Force be with you.
Always.